Well, hello there. Lava Ukraini exploded on my hands.
Oh, shit.
See?
It's like it's got the war in the can.
If you have no idea what the fuck we're talking about, you will soon. Welcome to Brewing Controversy.
Did
I'm
I
Lucas.
get anything important? No, okay.
This is David. And for one of the rare times lately, we both had the same beers for tonight's show, and we're going to have some fun talking about those, trying those together. But first, we have to settle in. We got a little bit of hurricane coverage we're going to keep an eye on, because one of our loyal buds that's always part of our commentary for the show, Brian, is as he described it earlier today, the hurricane should make landfall at approximately his front porch. So yeah. So we're trying to keep an eye on that and hope that things are I guess as good as they can be down in Florida right now.
Although I'm just gonna throw this out because and I got yelled at because they were like, how dare you have such an awful thought? I'm like, no, hear me out.
Oh boy.
So the part of Florida that's most likely to vote Democrat is all the way at the end of the peninsula, right?
Yeah.
The part of Florida that votes the least Democrat is up there in Floribama / the Panhandle.
Yeah.
Where the hurricane's going to hit.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm not calling for death. I'm saying, however, if you're still in a shelter because your house has been owned by a hurricane, how likely are you perhaps to go and vote for everyone's favorite orange shit gibbon?
I'll do you one better.
To me.
I'll see your measured, cynical observation, and I will raise you this notion, or more accurately, what I would say to these individuals is, how you like all that mail-in and absentee voting now, motherfuckers?
Right?
Because it's, you act like it's voter fraud until you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like back the blue until they tell you not to do something. We
need to be tough on crime until you're tough on them.
Right. Yeah. It looks like I can't tell what 10 p.m. So it'll be a couple hours before landfall, evidently. I'm just kind of peeking at the weather. So anyway, we're going to kind of keep an eye on that thing. Evidently, it's going to go inland and fuck up Georgia and a big chunk of Tennessee and the Carolinas. And apparently, if you're in like Asheville, you're going to have a rough week. From what these maps look like right now. So we'll see how it goes.
Right now in Tennessee, we're just to give people in Michigan an idea of how big this is. All the way in Tennessee, a landlocked state, by several hundred miles, we are getting arms of this hurricane passing over Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, and it like, I'm gonna pull up the live radar. Yep. Oh, and it looks like it's gonna spin around to end like in western Kentucky. That's the projected swirly that I'm seeing currently. It's gonna be a wild ride. If only we had told people about climate change for the past 40 years. So anyway, here we are. It's time. We do this little thing at the top of the show called the Hot Take Happy Hour, but we also are going to drink and review 2 of the same beers. So one of the first things we want to do is crack open these the first beer, And in order to do that, we have to start a little early so we can sip on it while we do the happy hour, because I'm going to pace myself tonight. I have whiskey plans for the front porch later. Therefore, let's start right off the top with a what you're drinking so we can go ahead and talk about it. And then we'll dive into that happy hour. So, this is a really cool looking can. It's a Ukrainian lager. There we go. Let's see. Cheers. There we go. You got to find wrong way. There you. Yep. Aha. Okay.
Cheers.
That was the stupidest, dorkiest thing we've done.
No, not even close. There's got to be worse.
That's true.
There's got to be worse.
He speaks the truth. So this is Odessa from Ghostface Brewing. Now, the only disappointing thing I have here is like this is such a happy, bright, colorful can, and then I find out that the name of the brewery is Ghostface Brewing. I feel like I should be playing some rap in the background. And, like, there's nothing on here that indicates anything about a brand that I would think is Ghostface. It's really funny. Also, there's a lot of like vacant space on that label. That's kind of interesting.
Well, and you know, when I was picking these up, one of the interesting things is that they have an entire. Basically, this is a Black Sea themed line that they have. So they have a Ukrainian lager, they had an Armenian lager, they had a Turkish lager, all there together.
Okay.
So like the Caucasus, Black Sea area, they had a whole thing, and I'm like, you know, I could get the Armenian lager and just be super esoteric, but I'm like, no, this gives us a chance to go cheers, Slava Ukraini.
In case you didn't notice, this is a foamy fucker. Like, when I popped mine open, it like foamed all over me. And David, as you saw at the beginning, it foamed all over him. Even when I just tried to toss it back and plop it back down, it got foamed up again. Like it's active.
It is, but it's
active
good
and enthusiastic.
It's really clean. It's really easy drinking. This is very good, like hot weather lawnmower beer. This is fantastic.
And it's a big ass can. It's a pint can, and even though it's only a 4.3, it's very, very crushable. I'm really wishing I hadn't had such a big dinner right about now, because I'm looking at this can, and the next one is also a pint, and I'm like, oh, how am I going to get through it? So far, my read on this is like most lagers for me, which is it's great right now. Get back to me halfway through when it warms up, and I'll probably be like,
I will say this though: the extra carbonation in it is really making it pop. Like it is very bubbly. It is super bubbly.
Like the whole experience is very fizzy.
Yeah, but I like that. I like it that it's super fizzy.
Yeah. It's as far as lagers go, it's not skanky. It doesn't have the dirtiness to it that a lot of American lager tends to have. So yeah, in my mind's eye, I'm picturing this being cracked open on the battlefield as Ukraine fights for all of us at the end of the day, except Trump.
Are you a Republican? We're not fighting for you. You fucking bastards.
So let's do a little hot take. Let's do some happy hour action. We have a few topics just to kind of run down here. A big one right off the top is this is the last time that we will be using StreamYard for the foreseeable future. I started to get wind of it from other people. And I started looking, and I couldn't find any communication at all from StreamYard. Yeah, I like that. Tiny little comedy spoiler from the new Transformers film, which I've seen twice and fucking love. I will steal a line from them. Hey, my finger transforms. You want to see? It's a really good movie, and there's a lot of brilliantly funny moments, and that's one of them. And so I didn't really know. They didn't communicate anything to me for this account. So I put a support ticket in and I said, I'm hearing word that you're doubling your price. And they got back to me and they gave me the update. They said, you should see an email update soon. They're rolling out in chunks to different subscribers and giving you a date, which is sometime in October, of when you would roll over to new pricing. So currently, the rate for like the really basic plan that we use is 25, I think, 25 a month. And that's nominal, basically. But like the new rate is going to be 45. It's just like we live in this time of corporate price gouging out the wazoo. And here we are again, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so on the nose. It's so blatant. And the hilariousness is the dumb shit that they've thrown at people to try to act like they're doing something.
Which I got to give credit, just a slight aside, I got to give credit. So for those of you who didn't watch the Stephanie Rule interview of Harris, she, Rule is a very big, well, I'm a nice capitalist kind of commentator.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, oh, well, capitalism has its problems, but we need to fix them. I really liked her whole take of like, oh, certainly you're not in favor of, price fixing on some of these things. And I loved how Harris deftly just sidestepped. She's just like, I'm not going to comment on what I'm going to do about these prices. Without saying, I'm going to look at you and be like, there is no fucking way in hell chicken is $9 a pound anywhere. This has to stop. There's no way that I want to point out just again as a slight aside on the whole people screwing around with prices. Even Stellaris's dealer network, which they're the people who sell Jeep and Chrysler, their dealer network almost broke out the pitchforks the other day, looking at Stellaris, saying there is no fucking way a Jeep should cost $52,000. That doesn't make any fucking sense. You're charging, your prices are too high, and people who would normally buy our products aren't buying our products because this is way over inflation. You're just being greedy. So
yeah,
I mean, this is a universal thing, but the fact that StreamYard has decided to hop on the bandwagon of, oh, well, there's no way you increased the wages and cost of your operation by 100%.
Especially when it's fucking time. Air. It's air. It's ones and zeros. It's not like there's a material cost. The only cost StreamYard has is human power. That's it. Developers and operators of what they do. They're not going out and mining the ground for a resource that they then have to drive or ship anywhere. It's just fucking software on the internet in our modern era that doesn't even have a box. There's no retail footprint. It's insane.
They have to pay for really one thing other than labor is electricity. Electricity and labor are the two things that they have to pay for.
Yeah.
Electricity is not that expensive unless they decided to set up shop in a basement in downtown New York, right? At which point, I mean, yeah, that's a problem. But most of these places, this is more than likely we are coming to you from a data farm, probably somewhere in Ohio or Nebraska or Wyoming or some other state where the power is cheap and this service is being hosted from.
Well, and the fun part is like these rinky-dink stupid ass new features that they tried to basically this price gouge, this price raise for StreamYard is a turd. And they've attempted to polish that turd and wrap it up in like artisan organic grape leaves and serve it to us as if it were a delicacy with the stupidest list of, hey, look what we're doing. So
dark mode. They gave us dark mode.
Yeah, dark mode.
I don't
which
even
I'm
know
running,
how to turn it on.
Oh, it's in. I found it. It's in settings under that first general tab, and I'm using it right now. And I can tell you, I'm about to go fucking blind. Like I've got everything set to dark mode. All my Adobe apps are dark mode. My OS is dark mode. I browse anything that I
Oh,
can,
I just set mine to
including
dark
Google,
mode.
in dark mode. This dark mode is rat shit. Like, and it's kind of funny because we can't really show it to people necessarily, but there are tons and tons of streamers out there that know. But like the little icons that control the options of like, am I doing
They
this?
made those
Am I
dark.
doing
Why
this? Am I
did they
doing
make
this?
those? Why did
Those
they make those
buttons,
dark?
they're like if the background, if you're doing a 10-point brightness scale and the background of the screen is black, which it is, the buttons that do the things I just did are using two different steps apart. It's like if a 1 is black, the dark gray is 3, and the next one's 5, and they're almost invisible. It's amazing. So the email is entitled "New Subscription Plan," as if it's like a new product or a different level. New subscription plan plus 4K local recordings. I guess that's cool. Except how much of the audience receives this in 4K? How many fucking suckers are out there that paid enough to everybody involved to get their YouTube stream in 4K? And then
I don't think where I am. I
Reusable
really doubt
studios.
Comcast is broadcasting in 4K. That's one of the things that's kept me from getting like every time I'm like I may want a 4K television, and then I'm like, but what am I going to use it for?
So then they say reusable studios, dark mode, 1080p screen sharing, and camera shapes. Okay, cool. I could make me and you sitting in circles now instead of rectangles. Is there some benefit to that kind of stuff for brands? Maybe.
What the fuck?
No,
But
not
who gives a
enough.
shit?
Not enough.
Who gives a shit about like regular streams? For the most part, nobody's going to give a shit about that, any of that. It's the point is, you could say we've done a lot of work, we've done a bunch of upgrades, we're doing some new stuff, 4K storage, okay, cool. That takes more data. You know, we're moving from 25 to 30, and it would be like, okay, all right. It's like that one Mexican restaurant.
I still would have been like,
Well, yeah, it's especially now that we've researched the competition.
Yep.
Like that one Mexican restaurant on Nolensville Road, Las Americas in Nashville, that I always loved, one of my favorites, if not my absolute favorite. And they have burritos that are this big. And when I first was introduced to the place, they were $2.99. $2.99. And I was just like, this is heaven. And then one day I went in there and the burritos had ballooned to $3.99. And I went in there and I looked at the menu and I'm like, what? And then I looked up at the brand new ceiling fans. And then I went and realized I was sitting on a brand new booth bench at a brand new clean table. And my menu was no longer ratty, laminated, faded shit with whiteout blocks changing prices. It was in like a leather bound, gold edged little foldy. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
You earned it. You obviously spent money on the business and the experience. Here's your extra $1. And so it isn't that scale at all. And they've really pissed a bunch of people off. So the internet is abuzz with all kinds of people talking about jumping ship, getting off StreamYard, going to another platform. David and I already narrowed our list down to like 2 that we're going to evaluate and figure out. And next time you see us, it may look basically the same. It may be a little bit different. Don't know what the features are. Really don't care, because this is just a fun project. We're not making any money off of this. If it looks a little different, it's okay. So we are primed to leave. And I got to tell you, every price we've seen for what we need is under $20. So fuck them.
Yep.
And a lot of people are following that same example. So let's shift gears and talk about one, like, this is kind of a twofold thing. A, Lucas doesn't really like cops, so it's nice to see an ex-cop step on a shovel and get hit in his own face. Also, I'm a little salty. I will always be a little salty about the whole Andrew Cuomo thing. I feel like he's not the smartest guy in the room when it came to a lot of his bad choices, but I felt like the way that the party apparatus ate him alive in a self-serving way had shades of Al Franken to it that really annoyed me.
I don't think you can really apply this to. And the reason I'm going to say you can't really apply this in the same way to New York politics, so much of this is dynastic, right? So
True.
many of the people playing in this game in New York, in the New York Democratic Party, for 100 years, we're heading up on 200 years, has been a lot of the same names showing up
Yeah,
again and again and again, and the Cuomos are one of them, right? The
true.
Cuomos are one of those names that shows up again and again, and I think a lot of people looked at it as a great opportunity to say, "You motherfuckers, I'm really tired of having to deal with your dynasty
And
constantly showing up and running things.
that is a
And wouldn't it be nice to take you down?"
fair point. That's a fair point on balance. All of those things are just background for me anyway. I just didn't like Adams when he showed up at all
No,
because I
no.
thought he was a cheap dime store replacement for what we had been used to seeing. And he was an ex-cop, and I'm already like, oh,
He
fuck off.
so
And he's a Democrat, which I've always said with Democrat air quotes because he was the least Democrat I'd ever seen. And
yep.
basically now he's being accused in a case of the U.S. attorney in Manhattan dropping an over $100,000 I guess, bribe scandal from Turkey. Interesting timing for all of this to be happening at the same time. And he's basically standing his ground saying he won't resign, which is interesting to me because that seems like a New York mayor thing as well. Because remember, Cuomo was like, I'm not going to give in. I'm not going to back down. And then eventually he did. And I feel like Adams will as well. But I have Schadenfreude for this
Well,
motherfucker getting in
the
trouble. I don't really
the
like
issue with
him.
Adams is it goes so much further, which is the FBI has been up in uh, uh the fire commissioner's face. They've been up in the police commissioner's face. The police commissioner has resigned.
Yep, he's
Fire
leaving at the end
commissioner's
of the year.
resigned. I mean, this is far ranging. In
And this is
terms of
another example, by the way, of David and me and most reasonable Democrats or leftists gladly throwing the criminal fuck under the bus. We don't give a fuck. We aren't here trying to defend people. We don't give a shit if Hunter Biden did wrong. Throw the fucking book at him. We don't
yeah,
give a shit if Mendez is a piece of shit and has fucking gold bars
yes.
hidden in his bed mattresses. Fuck him. We are quick to the fuck him train when someone does the wrong thing. Which is why when we explain to you that the thing you think is the wrong thing and the scandal you believe that you're sniffing out with your MAGA nose is probably fake, because we will throw them under the bus when it's time, and Adams is all the way under that bus.
Oh no, and I also want to point this out. You know, Adams ran as a Democratic Giuliani, is how I feel like he ran, because he played to the
Yeah,
same old stupid BS. You know,
yeah,
when Lucas and I were growing up, there was always this view of the Bronx and like Hell's Kitchen as these barely moderated, like criminal anarchies, right?
right.
That Alphabet City and all these neighborhoods in these parts of New York were just strewn with drug addicts and collapsing buildings and slums, and and you saw it everywhere in the media. You saw it like you saw it in depictions in like Batman. You saw it in
Mhm.
depictions in superhero comics. You saw it depictions in Spawn, um, in all sorts of things. You kept on seeing this narrative of these collapsing inner cities, and the
Right,
reality, of course, was even by the time we were growing up, that was well on its way to being 100% turned around. The myth of the collapsing city, which so many boomers and so many MAGA people want to claim is still the truth, even when we were kids, was already on its way to not being true. Now,
right.
there's still cities out there that have that being true. there's still places like, especially ironically in Republican controlled states, especially where you have cities that have some really rough areas that are still in play. Ohio, Cincinnati, Cleveland, those have areas that are in desperate need of help and assistance with their urban blight.
Mhm.
Detroit is finally turning around now that Democrats are back in power. But under Republican regimes, the city fell entirely apart, and is now being on its way to being rebuilt. Is now on its way to being a functioning city again. But
we should go around saying these republic cities, because they say these Democrat cities, these Democrat run cities.
yeah,
They never say democratic. The jackasses on the right
yep.
seem unable to grammar, and everything's
Well,
Democrat.
no, because they want to use the noun, and a lot of people pointed this out. This is actually something that is drilled in the right wing talking space of using the noun, not the adjective. So Democrat is a strict noun.
Hmm.
It can never be confused for an adjective, and so it's drilled into them to refer to Democrats as the other, as this other tribe that is a noun, not an adjective. But I mean, again, look at the Kansas City side of Kansas. Look at cities. Every time you look at these cities that have genuinely do have problems, St. Louis is a classic one. Democratic government in the city, uber MAGA government in Springfield, Missouri, making life hard for them. And Nashville is doing okay. A lot of people are looking around after the most recent round and starting to say, the fall is coming quick. The fall is coming, especially now the rumors of the state assembly legalizing gambling seem to be coming to. Someone knows something because MGM Grand has purchased land and is breaking ground on a hotel downtown, and they aren't showing up unless they know someone is going to legalize gambling. So I mean, once that happens, my joke to several people was, Lucas is going to see me a lot more when that happens because I'm out. I am getting the hell out of here before it all falls apart.
Right.
But I mean, in all these places where you have Republican governors, you have these truly falling down cities. And Adams ran on this idea that New York was somehow falling down, and it really wasn't.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been. And the reason is because there's that much money.
It's the typical cop fluffing, crime is rampant and everything's dangerous, despite the constant march of data that argues against that.
Yeah, I mean, crime is down. The Bronx has 100% turned a corner. Brooklyn went from being kind of middle classish to being bougie.
Mm-hmm.
It is bougie now. Queens, like Jamaica Bottom, all these places, which used to be kind of iffy neighborhoods, are now very solidly either upper middle class or upper class, because you can't afford to live there. The few middle class holdouts that you have in the city are places like Bed-Stuy and places where you have a whole bunch of rent control to enable middle-class people to continue to live there. I watched a video the other day of someone who was looking at an apartment in New York City, and the big deal was it was for $2,200 a month, which everywhere else would be expensive to maybe sort of affordable.
Mm-hmm.
But the joke of it was there was no solid like straight line space in this 400 square foot apartment for them to put a bed.
Yeah.
And it was one room. Just to clarify, it was one room with a door for the toilet and a small closet. But they were like,
well, it's going to be
no
fun to
place
watch. It's going to be fun to watch how this damn thing unfolds.
Yeah.
A lot of people are talking about the governor being able to remove the mayor, and that's something that hasn't been exercised in New York in quite some time. And questioning whether Hochul will have the balls to do it.
No, she won't.
I don't think she'll
She
have to.
might.
I think he's going to cave and he's going to leave.
I think there's a small issue in the fact that I want to say that she won't, but I think that she might, because her office just got slapped with this espionage issue of one of her chief aides turning out to be on the payroll of China.
Right.
So
that is a back-to-back recent headline.
She might be more tempted to go ahead and turn around and start smacking people in the New York City government. I mean, the one problem that I think we have that we all wish would be more prevalent, and that I see as the main problem with how this became an issue in New York, is there's advantages to the strong mayor, weak council system. Nashville regularly uses those advantages and manages to sidestep a lot of those disadvantages by custom. New York has a strong mayor, weak council system, and somehow it keeps on ending up in a lightly moderated dictatorship. And
wallowing naked in it. Well, I can't wait to see how it goes. I think he might just step down. He's just trying to talk shit and be tough right now.
No, I mean,
I did forget one thing. I forgot to mention in the previous thing about StreamYard. We forgot to talk about the roster of things that the company acquired that they have shit the bed on.
Oh God!
And I had that pulled up over here and forgot to go back to it. But the thing about StreamYard and all of the shit that we were talking about it. This is an acquisition by Bending Spoons, which is the software publisher that, or I don't think publisher is the right name, is the software investor that acquires tools and tries to pump them. The original owners of StreamYard were trying to find a way to get it back, buy it back. Like they realized that this was not going down the right path. That didn't happen. But some of their greatest hits include Evernote, Meetup, Remini. I guess it's what it's called. It's a
which
AI
I don't remember that one. I
enhancement
remember
tool.
Evernote, and I remember Evernote
Splice, which is a video editing suite, which I would expect them to merge into StreamYard, and WeTransfer. Now, most of that is a roster of shit that used to be better before they came along. So I think that's another sign of the deadliness. And pivoting into the realm of corporate greed a little bit more, some people know I've been on the job hunt this summer, and I'm noticing, and I'm mocking people that say, get a job. Yeah, that'd be great. A lot of people that are looking for a job would love to do that. There is so much horse shit going on out there in the job realm. Like 5 stages of interviews and rounds of shit. Test projects, which is almost always a scam. Ghost jobs. Like it's fucking insane. And then there's a lot of discussion about ageism and how the whole workforce in certain sectors, and mine being marketing, gets taken over by people that don't know anything about anything except the current trendy things. So in my situation, you may go and find that the only thing that apparently the marketing team that's all under 30 knows is how to make good Instagram and reels. And if that's not a thing that you're obsessed with, then there couldn't be anything useful that you would have to bring to the table. I've started to develop a theory that if I interview in front of a panel of 20-something white chicks, it's not happening.
No,
because
it's not.
I can't help but notice they just hire more 20-something white chicks. And the reason I'm specifically mentioning white chicks is because in this age of DEI, the age group, the generation that's supposed to be doing that better, is self-perpetuating a homogenization of a lot of corporate teams, and it's getting on my fucking nerves.
Well, and I'll say this. I think one of the main things that it isn't. I know you want to ascribe it to ageism, and I understand why. I don't think we can. And I'll tell you from what I'm seeing in the hospitality industry a lot, which is you get people who see something that they gravitate very easily towards what they see as the easy money, right?
Hmm.
It's always the quick, easy results, and they keep on looking for people to give them the quick, easy results. And I think one of the things that I've experienced very easily is that when that doesn't work, it's a lot of sitting there wringing their hands, asking, "Well, what did you do wrong?"
Hmm.
Not that the quick, easy results aren't guaranteed, right?
Right.
It's we did something wrong to not get the quick, easy result. I think that for the past, we really have to look at an entire theory of doing business
It's
for the
almost an
past 30
attention
years.
span issue manifested in business sense, right? Like instant
Well,
gratification is not always going to happen.
I mean, so if you look at and I like to use the 1980s as the major inflection point when we removed the regulations that we had. That when Reagan turned over all these regulations that we had in the 1980s, we went from a system of slowly building wealth, adding value, adding infrastructure, adding all these things to a system of how can I make more money faster?
Yeah. Right.
And we actually built an economic engine that was pretty good at that. But the problem is that it generates a ton of inconsistency and a ton of problems. One of the things that I try to explain to people about why the economy is so much worse for our generations than it was for previous generations was this. In the lead up to World War II, the big thing that FDR did was he moved us away from a economic philosophy called Say's Law, which part of the problem with Say's Law is Say's Law always generated these really big peaks and then these really deep recessions. And
Hmm.
if you look at a history of the late 1980s, not 1980s, 1880s or late 1800s, there we go. The late 1800s, you see like these constant boom bust cycles, right? Bunch of people make money and then a bunch of people lose everything, right?
Right.
And we don't see that begin to taper off until the early 1900s. And by World War II, we fully adopted what's called Keynesian economics. And one of the things that Keynesian economics does is it takes that big up and down and says, we're going to have not quite this big and up, but we're going to have a lot less down. We're going to have up and down. And what that generated was consistent returns. It generated not the huge returns, but more consistent ones that built over time. And when we kicked over all those regulations and said, let's go get all that big money, all of a sudden people were getting massive returns. And that's also when
Right.
we see the gutting of American manufacturing and the gutting of the idea of, hey, you sign up for a company and you work for them for life and then they pay you a pension. And that's how the world is supposed to work. This security that our parents had, that our grandparents had, was gone. And in its place it replaced this need to constantly be generating more and newer and higher price things. And
Well, and
what I'll say,
everything that we thought we knew about work and career went into the shitter with it.
right. So to give it a personal example in my realm, I worked for an organization that had an asset that was very, very, very consistent in generating a lot of money, right? Uh, every year, year over year, it did well, especially for the location that it was in. It did very well.
Right.
Um, the problem that happened with upper management, however, was that they needed to see something new that would generate, their hope would generate even more income. So they took the thing that was generating a lot of income for not a lot of input, right? They didn't
Right.
have to put a lot into it. The food was mediocre. Like an average food cost and labor cost for a restaurant should be around 25 to 30%. We were running at 12. We were taking not so great product and making it taste better and look
Hmm.
better. Um, we were doing a good job, but they wanted that new, bigger thing. And so they shut us down. And I ended up bouncing to a new place where I was not as I was not as happy and not as good at what was going on. But this goes to like the heart of it, which is you have the reason these people are doing this is because they're trying to chase this quick, easy money. If I just do this thing, then all of a sudden I'll get 50 million, like I'll get 500% return. Again, like when Lucas and I have tried to go in on business deals and we've gone out to talk to investors, they've been asking for things like 500% return on their investment. And you look at them and you say, that doesn't make any sense. That's not growth. That's pillaging. That's that's hit it and quit it.
It seems like nobody wants to do anything anymore. And by that, what I mean is this investment concept, like everything has become about the money itself instead of about what it was that you put yourself in on that made the money. We don't create
the money is the product.
History. We don't do Henry Fords anymore. We do whoever the fucking shareholders are and the CEO this week at Big Auto. We don't have people who both get filthy rich and are known for something. Those days have gone quite a long way away, with one notable exception, of course, that we have to always recognize. When they do show up, oftentimes they're a piece of shit.
It doesn't matter. He's from the sound of it. Even his investors are probably fed up with him, and now there is scuttlebutt that some of the things he may have done at Twitter must maybe heading for some choppy waters.
Fuck him. Anyway, we could do a whole show on the job hunt, the state of
but I'm saying, like, don't give up on that
bullshit.
Like, I mean, it is. And actually, did you hear the story? It got posted. And I'm forgetting the manager and the entire thing got published, and I'm forgetting all the specifics of the story. But basically, this manager needed an employee, and so he gave the prerequisites to his HR team, and what it turned out had happened. I'll get to what turned out had happened. So he kept on being told there was no viable candidate, no viable candidate, no viable candidate. And so finally he got fed up. He's like, something's wrong here. So he builds a custom built profile that matches all the prerequisites that he wanted. And he has this profile apply for the job, right? And he said within 5 minutes, first he got the we received your application email, and then the next email he received was, we're sorry, you've been rejected for the position. So what HR had basically done was turned on complete AI dominance of what applications for them to look at. Yep. And had managed not to put in the prerequisites properly, or had made them so strict that it was impossible for even qualified candidates to successfully apply. So then what the manager did was he said, okay, there's a parallel position open to me, right? With the exact same job qualifications as me. I just want to see if it does it again. And he handed in his own original resume, like his resume at that time, and handed that to the system. And again, it rejected him. And he was able to show his bosses that basically HR had done precisely nothing. Right. They literally just
justify their own existence. That's one thing they're real fucking good at, is coming up with bullshit that makes it look like they matter. And the ATS systems are killing human hiring and recruiting. I personally have no big surprise. I have a few extreme opinions about this. And one of them is, if you want to hire people for your team, fuck you. You read the resumes.
Well, I mean,
a lot of managers want to, and they're cock blocked by the HR.
I want to point this out. One of the reasons I'm in the restaurant industry is because the restaurant industry doesn't use ATS. My resume always gets through. I whenever I submit a resume to a restaurant, I always end up likely with an interview.
Yeah.
Um, and when I apply to more higher paying jobs, more than likely what happens is the ATS, the automated tracking system,
The
kicks me
applicant
out.
tracking system.
Applicant tracking system kicks me out because it says, "Oh, you have something in here that we don't like, and so we're automatically going to reject you without looking at the whole." I honestly, my solution, and I've gamed this out in my head, which is that if you have if you have a company of more than 50 people, same standard of law that we use for the Family Medical Leave Act, and you have an open position, you are required by law to submit that job to a national federal job board. You are required by law to submit that job to a national federal job board. And here's the thing, if you leave that up there and don't do anything to it, then the Department of Labor will look at you and say, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" If you're trying to, look like you're hiring someone without actually hiring someone, that's against the law. If you are trying to scare your current employees by trying to find new applicants who you don't intend to hire, you just want to push down salary negotiations, that's against the law. If you put this up here, which you're required to do, you have to actually show that you're trying to hire someone,
Yep.
and you have to hire them. Because like for instance, one of the things that we learn in immigration law that companies will go out and do is when they don't want to pay the going market rate for a job, is they will satisfy the requirement under U.S. law of looking for a domestic applicant. Like, let's say the job is in St. Louis, Missouri, right? They will advertise for the job in Bangor, Maine. Why? Because it's very unlikely that someone in Bangor, Maine is going to want to pick up and move for a $70,000 a year job.
Right.
Right? So they know that they can go back to the immigration process and say, "Hey, I need an H-1B visa so I can underpay someone from India
Yep.
to do the job."
Well,
Right now, that's an option.
I'll
And
do you
people
one
do
better
that.
than that, David. But Olivia's here. Hi. I may have forgotten to get all the people that normally are notified on the notifications, but hi, good to see you.
Hey, Olivia.
So I'll do you one better, David. It astonishes me that the burden is entirely on the person that's on the unemployment system. So I have to go and I have to fill out a form every 2 weeks that vouches for my status. It's online. Okay, great. But I had to go do that. I have to put in the name and address and the way that I contacted an employer that I'm trying to go work for. I can say I put an application in, then I have to vouch for how it was done, whether it's online or in person, etc. But I had to put their address in. So there's a burden on the person looking for work to document the process.
Yep.
What I find fascinating is that there is apparently zero oversight by the state in this case, which I don't think should be. I think it should be nationalized, but that's a separate conversation. But no one
because
from
it's a national job market. We
Right.
need to acknowledge that in the modern age, it is a national job market. The state departments of labor, I'm going to be honest, these are relics, and I think a lot of states should get rid of them. I think we should have a national unemployment office as opposed to state unemployment offices. I think we should have national
somebody
rules.
should come knocking saying, "Hi, so are you interviewing all these people that we are paying benefits out to while they languish with no interview from you after you listed the job and took their application? You're going to need to interview a certain number of people that are on the rolls of unemployment people if you want to stay around."
Well, I mean, and no, just make it real easy. It's not about staying around. It's that, hey,
Oh, I'm shut the motherfuckers down.
remember how we give you tax benefits for these things, for this and this and this. Remember how we allow you to deduct from the cost of your income taxes these costs that you put towards employees? Guess what happens to those? You're in violation of federal law. you're screwing around with the job market,
Mm-hmm.
those tax benefits go away. You're now going to be taxed the full rate. That's easy. That's really easy to say, to be like, hey,
Well,
the NLRB shows up. And actually, one of the nice things about that plan is this: it gives the NLRB another tool in its tool chest to look at businesses that are screwing with labor and say, stop doing this. Stop
yeah.
screwing with labor. This is the National Labor Relations Board. You have to actually attempt to hire people that you post a job for, and if you don't, then you lose these tax benefits that the federal government gives you for having employees.
I would personally love to use this as a way to just eliminate the unemployment system altogether and move to the thing that we should have, which is a minimum basic income. You should just float back on to the minimum basic income system instead of being on the unemployment teat, which is not really a teat. We fucking paid for it. We built that teat. We took that teat to Miami and got it some D's. We bought it some fucking plastic surgery inflated basketball titties. We have paid for that teat. But personally, I would rather see a system where you can get by. You'll scrape, but you could get by just by the fact that you are a tax-paying American citizen. If you choose to excel and go get a job, great. But it would free people up to pursue their passions. It would be able to let people build their own businesses. There are all sorts of really cool things we could do with that. I would love to see this debate become one that's tied into all of that.
Yeah,
I know you're not
leftist,
exactly a minimum basic income fan.
No, and here's
the
thing.
thing. I'm not saying universal basic income. I'm saying minimum basic income.
I know.
They are two different things.
Vaguely. I mean, it's mainly a method of like how it's deployed. I think the only problem I have with that is this: is that has a potential.
You have two problems with it. One, Andrew Yang, and the second problem you have with it.
Dark alley. Problem solved. Anyway, are you ever going to do this again? Are you, Andrew? No. But the other thing is, when we've seen it deployed, and I think there have been really great instances where it's been deployed. When it's deployed to communities that are in danger of falling down, it's great. So, like in Oakland, they deployed basic income, and it really made a huge difference in keeping Oakland from falling all the way down and beginning to put Oakland back together. I think someplace like Detroit in the 1980s, it would have made a huge difference to do that and say, all right, this community is in danger of economic collapse. Let's go ahead and deploy basic income and put this community back right. And then once we get people up to a point, we can back off of it. I think the problem with doing it nationally is, I think, as much as I'm a critic of how most people view inflation and inflationary pressures, that's one of those things that I can look at and be like, that's going to cause inflation. That's going to cause bad inflation. I can't get behind that. But in places where deflation is an immediate crisis, right, where the threat of deflation, like in Detroit in the 1980s, Oakland in the after the '08 crash, parts of Seattle right now, I think parts of Austin right now. I think those are places where you can be like, hey, if you live in this area and this is your situation, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to start cutting you checks. And the truth is that when that happens, that is a great way to turn that situation around. I'm not in favor of, I live in Beverly Hills, and yeah, I could be someplace else, but let's just be honest. There's other things going on if you live in Beverly Hills or Brentwood, Tennessee, or Asheville, North Carolina.
Well,
And
till
some of these,
tomorrow.
yeah, until tomorrow. You tomorrow,
Asheville might be below sea level by the time we talk again.
Jesus Christ. But I mean, it's places like that where you're like, nah, this
Yeah.
isn't necessary. There are opportunities here that you need to avail yourself of
You're not
besides basic
wrong
income.
about that attenuation. I can see that balance. Let's close out the happy hour with this BB thing. Good God.
So for those of you who aren't familiar, I slammed this into the end, and Lucas was like, no. I'm like, nah, dude, we got to talk about it because it's pissing me off so much.
But I hate him.
So
And he's costing me time. And anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So for those of you who aren't familiar, BB is the nickname for Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, who has now managed to go launch another war on his border. Now, for clarification, Hezbollah, which is the Iranian-backed militia that kind of operates legally / in a weird gray area in Lebanon as part of the system they put together at the end of the Lebanese civil war, which gives some sort of equal say to Shiites, some sort of equal say to Sunnis, and some sort of equal say to Christians. So Hezbollah operates in this kind of area of we are a Shiite organization, and honestly, for a lot of people in Hezbollah-controlled areas, they do stuff for those people. Other than recruit them into a militia, because the Lebanese government is kind of it doesn't always really want to function. So Lebanon, the Hezbollah militia was a little miffed, understandably, like a lot of the rest of the world, at how Israel has been carrying on its war in Gaza, and they launched a few rockets. Israel took that as an opportunity, and just to clarify, this is not an uncommon thing. Hezbollah lobs a few rockets over the border and calls it a day. Hezbollah is not sending in waves of suicide bombers. Hezbollah is not doing that. That's not in their best interest, right? They need to show their people that at least they're standing up to Israel, but they're not interested in a full-blown war. They haven't been.
They wave a rocket dick in their face once in a while, and then they step back. Usually, except the one that they fired at Tel Aviv recently.
So Israel decided to take this opportunity to, again, even though this is a regular thing, and I want to point out, like this is like a common form of, unfortunately, of communication between governments all over the world. Ask India and Pakistan; they regularly just fire artillery at each other. Just to remind the other, hey, I've got cannons and they fire and I can lob shells over the border.
Hey, fuck you. Yeah, fuck you too.
Exactly. I mean, this is a daily thing. And somehow at the Indian-Pakistan border, they still manage to not have a massive war at the border crossing. They just have really funny dances. If you've ever seen it, it's actually kind of magical to watch because they have the most elaborate costumes for soldiers you've ever seen in your entire life, and just like constantly doing like this regularly scheduled dance off in front of each other with rifles. But I mean, people they understand that this is just part of doing business. And again, I think Hezbollah, for their part, was like, this is a regular part of doing business. You're shooting at Muslims. We lob a couple of rockets at you. We call it a day. Instead, Israel decided to launch a massive bombing campaign among the civilian population, first off.
Yeah, they really can't seem to get this whole, hey, the world likes it better when you don't just blow up all the people that have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, so what they did is
through their heads.
They planted bombs in 400 pagers that were due for Hezbollah agents,
which in a vacuum is bad as hell. Like,
yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean,
when I first heard about it, I was like, okay, tell me more, Q. What's in the pen? But
right?
like,
the problem is that the bombs were not small bombs. These killed a lot more people than the Hezbollah agent. More than 4,000 people ended up in the hospital.
Yeah. And
Many of
when I
them
first heard it, I
innocent
thought,
bystanders.
oh, okay, they singed some ass cheeks. They may have crisped up a few wieners. Hezbollah kind of bunch of assholes, and I don't know. I might give Israel this one. And then you see the footage. Oh no! They basically almost ripped somebody in half and blew all the melons off the table at the fucking grocery store. They just cannot seem to not take out innocents. Israel seems to be unable to contain the blast radius of literally anything they do.
And then on top of it, so then it turned out these radios that they had, they'd also planted bombs in, right?
Yeah.
And which was worse because then you had people going to funerals for innocent people, and Hezbollah happened to be there with a radio, and then now we're bombing the funerals.
At one of the funerals for one of the victims that was not a Hezbollah person, there were Hezbollah people there, and those radio bombs went off. And the most fascinating thing to me was like they played the audio on NPR of the funeral, and I'm going to get like borderline racist here. They're sitting there doing whatever the fuck, and all of a sudden, bam, and it's quiet.
And then you hear
like they go back right into their thing. I was just like, holy shit! I don't know if that's maniacal or badass that they basically like shit blew up. Yeah, okay, on with the ceremony. But that's kind of what they did, and it's such a mess. And he just keeps like you made the topic here. He just keeps stepping into it. He's a madman.
So what he's playing to is this sense of absolute rage because it's gone beyond all reason inside the Israeli populace, especially the right wing, which is determined to kill as many brown people as possible to make as much room for as many Jews as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Number one. Number two, we're talking about a group that 30 years ago we tried to have peace, and it was ended by right-wing Israeli militias killing the guy trying to make peace. And the thing is, the right wing in Israel has never forgiven anyone for that. I mean, this is a war of conquest. This is a war of extermination.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to start acknowledging that. And luckily today, the UN did try and acknowledge that and say, no, there needs to be an immediate ceasefire. This needs to stop now.
Yeah. It's going to come to a head one way or the other. God forbid Trump wins. He'll just go ice everybody. But in the reasonable realm of possibility, Bibi gets fucked one way or the other. You know, he can do it. He can do it the nice way, or he can do it the other way. You know, I'm not saying, I'm just saying there are people with really good aim running around. Anyway, so something will happen with that. He'll be forced out. He'll step down, or he'll end up in several pieces in multiple suitcases or whatever the fuck it takes. Or maybe the thing that I want, I don't want it, but it's like what we're forced to do at this point is the powers that be do the thing that we've done to fuck up everything else in the Middle East and just step in and start putting down the law. Like, you go over there, you go over there, you calm the fuck down, and all of you are going to blow your fucking head off if you fucking twitch. Now, here's what's going to happen. And I've been waiting for America to lead in that regard since the very beginning. I've been very disappointed that we haven't. And I don't like that imperialistic control all the sand people kind of approach. But what the fuck, man?
I mean, I think the problem is, and this is what I've heard the most of, and it's I think this is what is scaring the Israeli right wing the most, which is driving them to this, which is right now everyone's talking about a two-state solution, right? A Palestinian state and an Israeli state.
Yeah,
right. Two
down.
Different. But the reality is this.
You've talked about how it would never work, but I would love to see it.
Increasingly, the reality is that a two-state solution is not viable. The thing that really scares the Israeli right wing is this. Increasingly, the only viable solution is a one-state solution with equal rights to Jewish Israelis and Palestinians.
Yeah,
in one country,
and they don't want to
because.
share.
Well, exactly, and that's the thing that scares the hell out of the Israeli right wing, and I feel like that's part of why this is happening, is that there's no good way around this. The
Yep.
Palestinians don't have a power structure built into where they are, where they can function independent of Israel. The people who go in to work, I mean, that was one of the articles that came out today, is how badly the Israeli economy is doing, that it's on the verge of falling, of completely failing, because everyone who worked the farms in Israel were Palestinians. The people who were at the checkout counters were Palestinians. The people who built the buildings were Palestinians.
So
And the problem is,
it's kind of their version of the anti-immigrant American stupidity. Like, they took our jobs that we don't want to do and won't accept the paycheck for.
exactly. And so one of the things that's happening is these, because Israel won't deal with, with the Palestinians at all. They just want to take their land and somehow put settlers who don't make any money and constantly need government support on their land. The Israeli economy is on the verge of complete collapse. More than 10,000 Israeli owned businesses have failed since the start of the war.
Well,
Um, and
I
so
hope that
the truth is that a one state solution is the only solution, and the problem is it means the Israeli right wing has to start looking at Muslim and Christian and even other sects of religion that are living around them, and it has to become a federal multi ethnic state, and it terrifies the hell out of them.
well, fuck
The
them. If
Jewish
that's what
state
has to happen,
cannot
fuck them.
survive.
Fuck them either way. I don't really give a shit how it happens. Well, let's jump into another beer. You ready for that? I've given up. Got 2/3 of the way in on the Ukrainian lager. For those that are just joining us, one of the reasons that the timing may seem off is that we opened with a beer. Because we both have some beers that David was kind enough to pack up in a little care package for me, for my better half, to bring back from a work trip to Nashville that she was taking. So we are reviewing talking about the same beers tonight. So before we get into our two closing topics, let's jump into the dessert. So we had our dinner, we had our Ukrainian lager, and now it's time for another round, and this time it's the Fat Kid juice. So this one I'm very much looking forward to. David had me on the phone. He's going through the story. He's like, "Oh, this one's got your name all over it."
Yep. That's actually the other one that we'll try on another show. That 903.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one's the one that had your name all over it. But I want to give an honorable mention to this placeholder beer I've been drinking, simply because the can is so pretty.
Oh, here, hold on. Let's make sure we get that blown up for people to see it. And then you had to fuck with your weird focus.
Yeah,
there you go. Oh wow, yeah, that's neat.
This is such a pretty can. Solid. That's the name of the beer. It's called Solid. And what's the name of the Burial Beer? Which they were a new edition that I've been trying them out a little bit. But their tagline is always, "You should be exactly where you are."
Oh, that's neat.
All the time, which like kind of like you're buried exactly where you are.
Oh yeah, right. Well, I had not heard of Boulder beer. Maybe I've been under a rock. But when I opened my beautiful little 6-pack, I don't know, is your can like beat to shit, or is that just mine?
Yeah, it's gotten a yeah. Let's see.
So Boulder beer, it's
gotten a few
quite attractive.
dings.
It's a nice. I like this photographic label. It has a little bit of a Jones Soda vibe because it's got that whole rectangular tagging and black and white photography. I think that's kind of fun. And they've got the logos for the other things that are involved: the Laws whiskey and the Huckleberry coffee. So this is Shake, which is apparently their chocolate porter sub brand. This is the Shake Dark Chocolate Porter. And it's Laws whiskey barrels and Huckleberry coffee, and I have not touched it yet, and I'm going to dive in. Oh, that's quite tasty. It's roasted.
Yeah, I was to be like the chocolate and the roast really play off each other together. It's
Right up
not.
front.
And the other thing is, like, a lot of times when we get these, aged in something barrel stuff, it's got that alcohol ester wandering around in the flavor profile, and this really doesn't.
The whiskey happens.
It does, but you don't get the alcohol bite ester. You just get the sweetness of the whiskey.
Yeah. Then the woody
Yeah,
barrel-y thing is there,
and then it
but it
finishes with a
doesn't
kind of
have a booziness.
no
What's your finish? I'm getting like the bitter
chocolatey.
coffee.
I was getting a little bit chocolatey, but let me try.
Yeah, actually, okay, because it's dark chocolate. The bitter of the dark chocolate is going to match up with the coffee pretty well.
I'm getting the coffee like mid mouth. I'm getting like yeah, definitely mid mouth. Getting that coffee
Yep,
flavor.
yep. It's good. It's not as decadent as I had thought it might be, but I don't know if I'm mad about that. What I
I'm
will
not.
say, I've gotten bored with porters. Like, I remember many moons ago, people would say, "Oh, you like dark beer, so do you like porters or stouts?" And I'd be like, "I don't know, both." And over time, I've started to develop a very definitive answer: is stouts. I like stouts.
Really?
Porters, I like secondarily to stouts. Typically, porter is not as interesting to me once I drink it. This works really well as a porter.
It does. And normally, I'm much more of a porter guy. I much more prefer, because I feel like stouts very often end up being overly cloyy because they don't finish their flavors. I think in a lot of instances with a lot of stouts, they start something that they don't finish, and I think
Hmm.
porters always show up and they say we're going to start something and we're going to finish it all the way through this flavor. Um,
This does,
and
like from a nose perspective, to me, it's like a um, cold cup of coffee, black coffee, not
yeah,
no cream. Like cold cup of coffee with cream tends to start to smell like spoily, but this has got that cold brew coffee kind of touch to it to me.
yeah.
If you were to pour this in a mug and pour coffee in a mug and let them both sit there until they were both room temperature, I think they would smell the same. And I think somebody would be hard pressed to tell you which one was the porter.
I am starting to get, now that it's starting to warm up just a little bit in my hand.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get a little bit of that alcohol note.
Yeah. Still
Uh,
very good. Very good.
it's
Decent rating. It's not soaring into the dragon's milk territory, but it's a nice solid almost 8. Um,
I feel like that's porter hate, not real. Not. I refuse to believe that's a real number. I would give this. I mean,
oh, wait, you talking about the 3.97
yeah.
rating?
I
It's only 439 ratings. I think if it got a
yeah.
wider scope, it would probably inch up. But personally, I will probably end up giving this one 4, maybe. It might be 3.75. But that's because I have like
I
this mental list of ranking going, and I have certain beers I don't want to let
yeah.
anything.
I mean,
I don't want to
I'd
let
give this
anything surpass, so I keep things under 4.5 on purpose. And so, like, unless you blow my fucking face off, you don't get
right.
to
It,
exceed a
4.5
4.5 for me.
means that you have successfully caused me and Lucas to lose our damn minds. Anything below 2, you have made Lucas and I lose our damn minds.
Lucky
For an
Charms.
entire Lucky Charms. There we go. Hi, tailgate. What the fuck is this shit? um, no, I have to give this a solid 4. I think it's as a porter, for a porter, it's doing really solid. It's doing what a porter should do. It's doing the roasty, and the chocolate is smoothing out the roasty very nicely.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very good at, well, again, one of I think the danger for a lot of brewers, and I feel like a lot of them either don't care or see it as maybe an added feature, is that alcohol note. in higher grab beers when they age it in in liquor barrels, and I think that annoys me sometimes
Hmm.
because I don't. If I wanted to drink whiskey, I'll just drink the damn whiskey. I don't want your beer whiskey. That just like just give me a Boilermaker, you asshole. That we can solve this problem. Hey, look, I just made a whiskey aged beer with a shot of whiskey. Drop it in there. Boom. And
So
then two of
it'll
those,
be
and you'll find me on
interesting.
the floor.
It'll be interesting for you to try that one I told you about. I'm going to be a little bit vague because I get the scoop from people locally, and I tell David the straight up scoop, but I don't want to be out on the internet blowing someone else's surprises in the beer world. But I sent you a note that it was on a day when you were already on a tear about something else, and so I didn't even ask if you saw it. But there is a beer coming that is barrel aged. I think it's triple barrel aged stout.
Yeah.
And it's going to clock in at like 22% or something. And I, when the person that told me about it said, yeah, so, instead of a beer that kind of tastes like whiskey, we're basically going to have a whiskey that kind of tastes like beer.
Just give me a Boilermaker. I mean, honestly, just give me a Boilermaker. And for those of you who don't know what a Boilermaker is a pint of beer with a shot of whiskey dropped in it like an Irish car bomb. Which I don't know if YouTube is going to get mad at us for.
22%. Oh, that's right. And it's going to come in a bomber. So it's 22%. Triple mash, triple barrel in a bomber.
For those of you who aren't familiar, there is a drink in Scotland called Buckfast. And Buckfast is very famous for being high alc, easy to drink, and causes untold amounts of property damage from the people who drink like 2 bottles, 3 bottles of it, and then go on
when
a fucking
people go
tear.
out fuckbasting after their Buckfast bender.
Yeah. If you look it up, if you want, it's basically like Scotland's version of Mad Dog.
Jesus.
That's what that is. That is bougie Mad Dog. That is what that is.
Well, you'll be one of the first people to know when I try it.
That is bougie Mad Dog.
So let's talk about the things and the stuff. I'm going to bring our favorite little tool onto the screen. Make sure I get it in the right cropping.
Uh-oh.
There we go. Because we're going to need it to do a little hypothetical armchair, that thing that we love to do.
Yeah.
David, are you wearing your khakis?
Fuck you. All right, go for it.
So let's play with this map. We're using 270 to win. Because the conversation at hand, and for those that don't know their political history, one of my favorite people in the entire world of commentators and pundits is James Carville. And he famously said once, "It's the economy, stupid." Well, it's the uterus, stupid. And I am being cautiously optimistic about this election. But I feel that there are factors, and that's what this discussion is about tonight. I feel that there are factors that really figure in. I mean, this is the year of the woman in so many ways already. Here in Michigan, it's the year of the woman in that in my city commission ward, we are presented with a ballot that enables us to start at the presidential and go all the way down the ticket with straight women. But to pick on my own poor choice of words, one of those individuals is a they, them person running for the school board. But
fair enough.
A lot of voters aren't going to pick that up.
Is this a current map? Because I mean, I'm surprised it has PA leaning blue.
2024 electoral votes. Well, but see, the latest average of the poll, the latest average of all the polls that I was seeing reviewed on MSNBC earlier does have this blue wall blue.
All right, I'm pulling up 538 mostly because they seem. Oh, it's gone up again. Okay, good. That makes me feel better. Da, 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 da. Let's go look at PA. All right, so PA we're at 56 out of 44 times. Oh, it's gonna be about turnout. I still feel okay about PA. I think North Carolina we can go ahead and flip that one.
Well, here's the thing.
I think
focusing on this issue of hell hath no fury, there are two things to me that are in play this year. Women in general.
Yep.
And if you want to be super duper PC about it, people who can get pregnant in general, with abortion on the ballot in a lot of places, combined with moms who are real fucking pissed off. Moms have fucking had it about guns. And so there's a surge of angry women that are gonna come for this motherfucker's head. And I'm not sad about it. So, and real quick, I want to see, was this? This is much better. We are a little bit more than microscopic postage stamps. All right. So right now, there are different people tracking it. I'm using Axios tracking the abortion on the ballot stuff. So here's the general rundown. Florida, Supreme Court ruled earlier this year that the voters will have a chance in November to enshrine abortion access. They have a 6-week ban in effect. Maryland.
Also, we have the hurricane about to hit and not hitting Miami.
Right. Maryland, the Right to Reproductive Freedom Amendment. South Dakota, Amendment G, a trimester framework in the state constitution. Colorado, abortion is protected. Voters will decide whether to strengthen its protections. Colorado almost seems like a stunt just to get women to turn out, which is fine. Nevada, Right to Reproductive Freedom Amendment, protect the right to an abortion in a state where the procedure is already legal up to 24 weeks. That's another get out the female vote effort. Arizona, Supreme Court upheld a near total ban. State's High Court agreed to delay enforcement for another 90 days in May. Advocates had garnered enough signatures for a ballot measure. The Secretary of State announced that the Arizona Abortion Access Act, which received about 578,000 certified signatures, will be on the ballot as Proposition 139. I expect all the media coverage on election night to have like a big fucking board, like a separate screen, just a checklist of all the fucking Proposition G, Proposition 139, all that kind of shit. I think we're going to be tracking a lot of these. Missouri, deciding at the polls whether guarantee. Montana, New York, all across the board, you got this stuff. Okay. So on the Axios map, combined with some things like you've mentioned, David, with the hurricane, there are some audacious things that one could do to the electoral map.
I mean, here's the thing. If Florida flips, then it's all over. It's done for Trump.
Yeah.
If Florida, like literally, even if Pennsylvania breaks for Trump, if Florida flips, we're done. Everyone can go the fuck home.
So
Arizona
I've been crowing about how I have a viable, reasonable idea of how Kamala Harris could break 300. And I've even been as bold to say she could approach or break 50. And when we start doing things like what you just suggested, we
Yeah,
start to see.
I feel like we can go ahead and flip North Carolina. I don't care what they say. The real wild cards, I feel like, in this race, I don't think Ohio's going to do it. Ohio's not going to do it.
I
Ohio's not going to do it.
I'm
Ohio's not
not
going to do it.
saying I have reason to be convinced. I'm just saying there are things that can happen. And there are things that fit for me into the stranger things have happened category.
Oh God, Kentucky's going to somehow do it? What the fuck?
I'm just throwing it out there so I can say I said it when it might happen. If it happened, I could say I said it. But you've got a Democratic governor, a popular Democratic governor. There are
It's still
possibilities
Kentucky
out there for some wild shit to happen. But the net result here is that women are pissed.
I mean, I think if you want to
coming to vote,
if you want to look at the ideal map, at the absolute, I feel like the most breakneck, we fucking ran the tables on them map. Georgia, throw that in.
That's what it was. I forgot. Georgia was how I arrived at the she hits.
And if you really want to like really mess with people, Iowa.
Go on.
So the polls, like once Harris came in, the polls in Iowa went. Iowa was not interested in Biden, but they were a hell of a lot more interested in Harris. It went from a 12-point deficit to a 3-point deficit in Iowa.
Interesting.
Texas is kind of there, but I just don't feel like Texas has got it all the way. I think that Allred may be able to pull it off in Texas and get the Senate seat, but I don't feel like there are enough people because there are enough Republicans in Texas who are fed up with Cruz to get rid of Cruz. I don't know that there are enough Republicans in Texas to get rid of Trump.
So I want to go back to the things that we all know and take for granted, or even some bad case scenarios like Georgia. In fact, let's just be really
take Pennsylvania off the map, turn Florida back red.
Let's play with. Well, we don't really have to. Well, let's see. I turned Arizona. Let's flip Arizona.
Yeah.
Let's just play with what you just said.
It still gets us to where we need to be. Well, Texas turning blue would be.
I know this, but what
that mean like the Republican National Convention would collectively. Let me explain to you. They would be hoses all throughout the District of Columbia because they would have to be to wash the shit that literally just evacuated every Republican's in DC's bowels at that moment.
Well, right, and I'll expand on what I was going to say, but I want to point out that Olivia also points out
bingo.
Florida has
300,000 registered Haitian voters.
Yeah. The Haitians are going
Florida
to put down their cat jambalaya and fucking go to the polls, right? Like JD,
they are mad. They are mad. They are real mad.
What I was going to say is, if we are sitting there on election night, and I very much doubt we'll be able to do a live show because I have a candidate that I'm involved with and one I'm working with as a client, and like I don't expect to not be at watch parties.
I feel like we can do a day after though. I'm prepping myself to do
definitely a day after. But what I do have to say is, if we are moving our way through the time zones and this shit right here happens,
then it's over. We're done.
It's over.
This is
and people
Trump's
are going to be
problem.
turned up, drunk as fuck if this is the point that we arrive. The Eastern time zone is going to be useless. Everyone in Eastern time is going to be trashed out of their mind. Well, Democrats in Eastern time are going to be trashed out of their mind. Actually, Republicans,
everyone will be. But here's the deal. Forget Texas. If Florida turns, which it like with the Haitian issue, it may, then it's over. Yep. Even if PA goes red, and here's the thing: we won't know if PA goes red until the third or fourth day. Really,
right?
Realistically,
That's the thing that I'm hoping
Arizona.
for, is that she beats his ass so soundly that none of the shit that lingers for days on end matters. That's what
Here,
I
I
need
mean,
to see.
here's the thing. I think Arizona is still a wild card. Georgia is still a wild card. I feel like North Carolina, we can go ahead and put in the bag simply because Robinson has shit the bed so hard in North Carolina that I don't feel like there's a good way for the Republican Party in North Carolina to come back at this stage from that. The North Carolina Democrats did very well at holding their powder till the last possible moment.
Yeah.
They did very well, and the irony is the revolution. Many would argue, and I would definitely argue that the revolution was truly won at the Battle of Cowpens in North Carolina. When Cornwallis's army was defeated at the Battle of Cowpens, um, by the entire phrase, the two phrases that stay in our collective memory of "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes,"
Uh-huh.
and the other phrase, which is not quite as popular, which was the order to the militia of I only ask that you fire 3 shots. And you can actually see the Battle of Cowpens in the movie The Patriot, which is a slightly stylized version of what happened, but it's the general gist of what happened,
Mhm.
which is militia in front. Oh no, we're running. Oh shit.
Well, the net takeaway here is they
it's trouble. So
they
Trump
have an
has to
uphill
sweep the
climb, but
board.
I think it's very much like you can add the Haitians into the mix, but it's very, very driven by
I feel
pissed
like
off
Florida. I
women.
feel like we need to start thinking about Florida in play. I think the
Mhm.
Harris campaign has been very smart in how they're diverting their funds, which is they are spending their funds in lower cost markets where they can literally saturate everything. They have not looked as hard at Florida and Texas and they've explained why they haven't. They're like, yes, we feel like we're competitive in Texas, but we will not devote the resources to Texas simply because the cost of us saturating the market in Texas like we want to is too high. Um,
Yeah,
so if we want to hold our powder for like the last 2 weeks, and again, I feel like this is the smart thing that the Democrats in leadership are doing right now. That is smarter is that they're choosing their shots. They're choosing where they absolutely annihilate, and because they know that they're raising more money than the Republicans.
yeah,
But that being said, we're raising more money, but we need to spend our money smart. We need to still act as if places we think should be safe may not be, because that's what
right,
got Hillary in trouble.
right.
Hillary assumed Wisconsin was safe. Hillary assumed Michigan was safe.
Hmm.
We're not going to play that game. We're going to
Well, and
continue to, even though the polls in Michigan have Harris solidly winning Michigan, even though the polls in Wisconsin have Harris solidly winning Wisconsin. They're not going to play this game where they allow the Republicans to sneak through and pull victory from the jaws of defeat.
no, and I think that the former Hillary guard is finally self-reflective and objective about their failure. And I've seen a lot of coverage about how there have been a lot of honest discussions of strategy and the failures and how to avoid them. And I think that's key. As a marketer,
Yeah.
that's what I constantly do. Like, okay, that didn't work. What went wrong? What about Missouri, man? Do you think
Fuck no.
there's
The
a
Ozarks, dude, are uh, St. Louis will show up, but the Ozarks are such a solidly. The problem
but
is
this, like, the state banned abortion?
Kansas City, and St. Louis can't override the red wall that runs through the middle of the state. And as much as I wish they could, they're not going to. Partially because, number one, Kansas City, Missouri is not liberal enough. It's not leftist enough. St. Louis is not leftist enough. They are simply not.
You think?
It's the same reason why Nashville doesn't determine Tennessee. I mean, because you think about it, Nashville and Memphis have the vast majority of the population. Nashville, Memphis, and Chattanooga have the vast majority of the population. They have Democratic groups, but they aren't fully like all the way there Democratic cities. They are mostly Democrat. Like the Democrat is always going to win in Nashville, but they're not going to win by 70%. They're going to win by 57, 58, 59, maybe 60%.
It will be nice to see some of these margins chipped away, even if the electoral votes don't come out of some of these states that help the cause. Seeing the margins change will be interesting.
The main problem in Pennsylvania that has to be looked at, and where the Harris campaign always has to camp out at, I feel like, and that's the two main the pain points in Pennsylvania are always Pittsburgh and Harrisburg. Pittsburgh is the most. I don't understand fucking Pittsburgh at all. I don't understand it. Any single time I look at it, it makes me want to bash my head in every single time. You have a city that is obviously very urban, that has a multicultural population, that has a large gay scene, that has a large, multi-ethnic scene, that consistently can't get past like 55, 56% Democrat.
Right.
And that hurts. That's what turns Pennsylvania red.
Well, and that's a little bit related to the big reason that we came here, which is to talk about all the nutty shit, right? Just the nutty shit check-in on Trump and his cult and all the fallout. And the way that David explained this to me, he said, I want to dive into his tax policy. I want to dive into his deportation fantasy, the epidemic of defections within the GQP. What happens if Georgia and Pennsylvania or any of the battlegrounds can't keep their shit together when his militias try to start some shit? So let's talk about that whole spectrum.
First, the tax policy. I want to talk about the tax policy first.
Are you going to talk about the tariff thing? Because apparently we cannot explain to people or re-explain for anybody that basically took any kind of general economics. It seems like too many dipshits have completely forgotten what a tariff is.
So I went back.
They weren't educated,
and I
people
crunched
to begin with.
the numbers. I actually went back and crunched physically sat here. I have a paper tape window in my screen where I went back and went like line by line, calculating. All right, so this is this average income. This is their tax burden under Trump. Again, this is still really Trump's tax system, right? Mm-hmm. This is their cost of living. This is how much they have to spend per week, right? So disregarding, let's say you never went to college. This is one of the things I did, because forget adding in student loans, because student loans just make it depressing. Bad. Let's say you didn't go to college, right? Or you went on full scholarship, right? But for a lot of people, like myself included, things didn't work out like intended, and you didn't get that 6-figure a year job. So you're earning in the 5 figures. So let's say you're new, like you're new to the job market. You're in your mid-20s, late for a lot of people, even in their late 20s. And you're earning in the 22% tax bracket, which, by the way, doesn't stay 22%. It's up 2% from last year because of Trump's tax policy. It's going to go up another 2% next year. to 24%. So I didn't calculate for that. I just did for this past year. And I ran the numbers. And barring anything going wrong and you needing medication or anything else, you should have about roughly $300 in your pocket every week in the 22% tax bracket, which is $42,000 a year. Now, that was being very generous, assuming that you had roommates, assuming that you had a very reasonable utility bill, assuming that you had a fuel-efficient car. I want to be very clear. Like I optimized this as far as I could to be like, this is the best possible case scenario for you.
Yeah.
You have a fuel-efficient car that runs well. We're not going to talk about public transportation because a lot of Americans, like myself included, don't really have access to public transportation. And especially if you're looking for affordable housing, you live outside of some place that has that has public transportation.
Right.
So, you live in a suburb someplace. So I even input gas. So you should have maybe about $300 in your pocket. Maybe a little bit less, about 200 some odd dollars in your pocket every week. Now, God forbid your car breaks down and you need to make a repair. This is the thing that strikes me as so aggravating about this entire scenario is any life-changing event that pops up, like your car breaking down, a serious expense, you have no method of dealing with. And
sure
I also
you do, David. The thriving availability of payday loan stores.
Which is, I mean, that's just
at the end of the day, that's what they want. They want to send desperate people into the jaws of their corporate cronies.
So, but I mean, I computed all this, right? I worked this out. I even got it down to, again, it's a single individual and they're only spending $100 a week on food, which is you're eating ramen, some of that. Like you're not, we're not going for anything frivolous on the food.
Yeah.
That's what I came out with. Now the problem is this. And this is the thing that always drives me fucking nuts about this shit. And I also did it for someone earning $250,000 a year. And I actually just stopped at a certain point. I'm just like, you're walking around with basically $4,000 in your pocket a week. You are fine.
Yeah.
You are fine. So if tariffs go up 20%, then all of these other inputs go up 20%. So at that point, when I did the math, the $42,776, which is the cusp of the 22% income bracket, they are now out. In other words, they owe money more than they're making, to the tune of about $75 a week.
Wow. And let's review. I've grabbed the closest random electronic item I could, this tiny little hard drive. Let's talk about tariffs. If this little bitty hard drive costs $100, okay, that's retail for this little sucker, and that's probably about right. But let's just
now it's going to cost about $130 because not only do you have to pay the 20% tariff on it, but you also have to pay for someone in your corporation to manage the paying of tariffs. So
and let's be very,
and keep the profit margin up.
Let's be very, very specific, because Trump is peddling this to his loyal droves of deplorables. He's basically treating this like the Mexico wall thing. He's making everybody believe that China is just gonna pay for it. And it's backward. If I buy this hard drive at Best Buy pays for it. Best Buy buys that drive from China, and now there's a tariff. Best Buy pays the tariff. Do you think Best Buy is just going to eat it?
They're going to pass it down. One of the ways I want to point out, one of the ways that China has already proven that it doesn't care all throughout Lucas and I's growing up, China made this big deal about we grew 8% this year. We grew 8% this year. Even when it was a lie, they always would say we grew 8% this year. Starting 3 years ago, President Xi did a different thing. He said, I don't care how much we grew. I don't care. I'm not going to put out a bunch of fake numbers. I'm not going to play this game anymore.
Yep.
I don't care. I'm done dealing with, and this is one of the reasons why we know, like, scarily enough, that China is prepping for war. Is they're not playing this game to Western markets anymore. Basically the internal metrics that the Chinese government is looking at. It said we're big enough, we're strong enough, we're powerful enough,
And
that
doggone it,
even
nobody likes us.
even if we get cut off, even if we get cut off, we will not see significant social unrest if that happens. So if we try and go and retake Taiwan for our own nationalistic propaganda, not because we actually need Taiwan, they don't need Taiwan. They want to leverage Taiwan for more power.
Right.
But even if we go and do that, the world embargoes us and does all these horrible things to us, we'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
We have set ourselves up in a method where, yes, there will be sacrifices, and we will justify this, but not enough that we can't justify them to our people.
Yeah.
That's what their hope is. For us, it would be an absolute fucking disaster, because one of the things that has happened because of conservative and boom bust economic policies, right, is that we don't have the domestic capacity to supply our own chips.
Yeah, we don't have
Even
anything.
with the CHIPS Act, we don't have that. Because one of the things that pisses me off about the CHIPS Act, where did most of the money for the CHIPS Act go? Went to stock buybacks.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We don't have domestic capacity to supply our own chips. We don't have domestic capacity. And this is the bad thing about tariffs, too, is that we don't have the manufacturing capacity anymore because everyone got greedy, right? And wanted to do these long supply chains. The reason the inflation even happened in the first place was because American manufacturers said, well, our investors need to see increases in their payout, and the only way, what they're really upset about is the cost of labor. They think the cost of labor is too high. We need to go someplace where the cost of labor is lower so that they will stop screaming at us. And this is one of the problems with relying on this hyper entrenched investor class, is that these people have convinced these companies to shut down American factories that employed American workers and move them abroad. In most cases, hopefully to Mexico, but in a lot of cases to China. And the problem is that we don't have those factories anymore. Those factories aren't just like sitting there not making enough stuff. They're not there anymore. That's the problem with a tariff-based system, is that we would have to go back to ground zero. We would have to somehow find the money to go build the new factory to supply the American market. But the only way that you could convince these investors to supply the American market is to charge at a rate similar to what the overpriced imported item is. It's insanity. It's absolute fucking insanity. Because then the person who builds the factory has to somehow charge enough from what they spent to build the factory and to pay American labor a living wage, right? They have to charge something equivalent. So really, even if somehow we get through the first, let's call it 3 years of this insanity, right? You're still only paying 2, 3, 4% less, maybe, for your good.
So while you were talking, I went around my desk just to see. China, 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 China.
Mhm.
Are you ready for a kick right in the rugged individualism
China.
outdoors, people? China. It's everywhere. Fucking with it is not a good idea.
My pocket knife?
China.
China.
Yeah. So
We do not have the
great way to
because
implode literally
people got
everything.
so greedy, because people kept on getting so damn greedy about where things were made, and specifically that investor class that was so angry about the cost of labor. Right? Because it wasn't that they weren't making money. They were making money. They were making a profit.
They were just not making enough fast enough
They
for
were
their
not making enough
grubby
money
little
fast
fucking
enough.
paws.
And because of that, that entire manufacturing sector moved away. They said, fine, the thing that drives me entirely nuts, Ticonderoga pencils, right? Pencils. We don't make pencils in America anymore. We don't even make pencils in America anymore. If you want a pencil that's made in America, you have to get some sort of artisanal pencil. Now all those pencils are made in abroad. And the irony is, again,
Office Depot claims to make them in the USA.
a part of it is made in the USA. The rest of it is made, like normally the eraser or something is made in the USA. But I mean, the biggest pencil manufacturer that we grew up with, Ticonderoga, they aren't in America anymore. And somehow Trump wants to start this massive trade war with someone who's already telegraphed to all of us
Japan.
that they don't care anymore. That they don't care. They're not going to play this game anymore.
My opinion of the friction pin just went up like 10 notches.
So, I mean, it makes no sense.
Let's see how this goes. Oh, boy. Let's see. Made in the USA? All right. Probably not the sheath. All of this shit around the physical applicable product probably is Chinese. Burt's Bees. Let's see what you guys have going on. God damn, I'm old. I can't read that for shit. Might have actually been made in Raleigh, but I bet the tube isn't. Yeah, so great. Implode the economy. Smooth. Great idea. The next ludicrous thing on his jerk off fantasies of concepts of plans is this whole deportation thing. I mean, any rational thinking person, which basically is none of the Trumpers, you don't have to apply much brain to figure out, okay, wait a minute. We can't do that, right? We can't. Like, there's just like physically it doesn't work. There aren't enough paddy wagons in the entire country to haul off all the immigrants.
They don't care. I mean, so what I've been able to
well, no, they don't care because it's a wild-eyed racist fantasy. But
well, I mean, it goes beyond that. So what I've been able to glean from talking with people and listening to some other, listening to some talking heads and talking to some people is what they really want is something performative. Now, what do I mean by that? A lot of these people who are backing Trump, especially over things like immigration and stuff like that, do they actually think that their job has been, or some job has been lost by immigration? Not really. Very few of them. Do they actually feel like there's some sort of lost economic opportunity. No, not really. What they're upset about is that their position, in large part due to Republican policies which have increased income inequality, they
Yeah.
feel like their position has eroded, and it
Mhm.
has.
Mm-hmm.
But more than that, as compared to traditional Republicans or Democrats, right? What they want is they want to see someone do something. They
Yeah.
want a performance. And so what they really want is crystal knocked. And what do I mean by that? So for those who aren't familiar with Crystal Knocked was a night in Germany when the Nazi SA, the street gang that the Nazis ran basically that called the Stormtroopers, um, went around and they found Jewish shops and they broke their windows and they broke the windows of Jewish homes and they broke the windows of Jewish synagogues and they did all these things, and it was called the Night of Broken Glass or the Crystal Nacht.
Mm-hmm.
And the strange thing happened after that in German society, which is support for the Nazis went up. Why did support go up? Because they saw the Nazis doing something. Something terrible, but something to say someone is responsible for how bad things are, and we are going to go punish them. We are going to go do something.
Yeah. Well,
And what
and
these people
also
want,
though, like if you think about it, it's all tied into they need to push someone else down further so that their lowly station that they've stood around and enabled people to put them in can feel better.
it isn't even that. It isn't even that they need to push someone else down. It's that they need to see that someone is doing something to address the problem.
Mm.
And the problem is in a lot of democracies. The Weimar Republic was true. It's true with us. It's true with a lot of democracies. These changes take years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Biden's Inflation Reduction Act will still be taking effect for another 3 or 4 years, right?
Right.
Pieces of it will still be kicking it along, trying to get us to this place. We don't have liberal democracies don't have a system for rapid turns in direction, rapid changes of any kind, whether it be the market or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few exceptions, but they are often hard biting. FDR's New Deal,
Mm-hmm.
man. But FDR basically said, remember what we had as a federal budget before? I'm basically quadrupling that now.
Yeah.
Right? This is a drastic change to how the world works. And people generally don't like that, and except at the very point of crisis or after the crisis has already hit and we're trying to find some way to get out of it. Um,
Oh, you
the
mean like suddenly pivoting to remote work and hybrid office environments?
Oh yeah, like that. But in reality, it wasn't bad enough of a crisis, honestly,
I think
for this sort of
you
thing.
are really onto something. I think you're right about the performative nature of it. Um, it is objectively, if you even tried to weigh it and game it out, total impossibility horseshit. And
But what they want to see is they want to see brown people in chains,
rounded up,
rounded up.
put on a bus, and driven back across the border.
Yeah, that's what they want to see. They want to see some performative action of someone is doing something.
Kind of like building the
something.
wall and like 5 segments of it that you
But
can throw a football.
the problem is that building the wall was not performative enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't, because it's over somewhere in Texas. If I'm in a Milwaukee suburb, I don't see a wall.
Right.
I don't see anything. I still have that, that guy who doesn't speak English serving me at my Mexican restaurant.
Yeah. Well, in all practicality, I feel like even if you ignore the physical impossibility of it all, if you think through the assorted, inconsistent responses of local law enforcement, it's a nightmare in and of itself. I mean, I'll never forget the way that I got impressed by Nashville's police chief, the one before Drake that's there now. The first time I was ever truly impressed with him, and again, I try to remind people I'm not a cop appreciator. I'm not a big fan of cops. But for me to actually like a chief, it matters. It's a big deal because it's like, all right, well, I'm going to give him hell anyway. But if I can like him. And the thing that got me was that the Nashville Police Department, under the Obama administration, was asked to go hunt for some kind of national security threat, some bullshit. And they were given a bunch of addresses, and their response was, I'm sorry, do we have warrants for any of this? And they were like, no, fuck a warrant. And they're like, yeah, fuck you, fuck a warrant. We're not doing shit. And the police chief stood on it and said, no, fuck off. And I was with him. Like, Obama's my boy, but that was wrong. And he said no. And I think if you looked at something like this, an edict from ICE to go and, partner up with local law enforcement and go do this, you'd find a lot of these, handlebar, mustache, fucking cops around the country be like, Constitution's more important than you, fuck off. Some of them would be like, boy, howdy, I've been waiting my whole life to round up some wetbacks. Let's do this.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is, if we were monetized, the exact point at which YouTube would have demonetized us.
It was a quote. And so I think you would find some resistance there. It's just not something that rings as possible. Olivia points out it's also just bad because they're saying illegal immigrants, but what they mean is people pending arbitration of asylum claims. Yep. But also, like, to them, just anybody brown getting a break. I mean, I didn't even engage. I didn't feel like it, but on one of the local Facebook groups here, somebody was asking, like, hey, what are some local hotels that don't trigger Child Protective Services to lose their fucking mind because my roommate and I are losing the house we're staying in, and we don't know what we're going to do, so we're going to have to be in a hotel for a while, and we don't know where we can afford to live at this point. And somebody had to show up and say, well, if you were Mexican, they'd be paying for you to have a place to live. They get all kinds of breaks while our own people suffer. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't even have time or energy for this.
That's not even true. I mean, that's not even slightly true.
Well, no, but explaining it to a rube just didn't strike my top.
But I mean, that's what these people are looking
to
for.
Do today.
Is what they want to see is they want to see brown people in chains being dragged through the streets. Mm-hmm. And Trump knows that. Trump knows he doesn't have to deport 13 million people. Trump knows that he has to deport maybe a few 100,000 people.
I don't even think he has to do that. I think he has to choose 20 to 50 people in certain key locations with the right news cameras and do something for 6 weeks and then walk away from it. Yeah. And everybody in his cult will say for the rest of their life, oh, it's so much better in this country now that Trump got rid of all the illegals.
Yep. That's what they're looking for. Is they're looking for some sort of performative act. I mean, again, that's why they want the dictator thing. They want the dictator thing because they want performative action.
Yeah.
A lot of these people, when you look at them, like take for instance farmers, right? Under Trump, I learned to have a special dislike for a lot of farmers. And like the whole like, oh, if you like your food, you should thank a farmer. I'm like, I don't know if I should anymore. I really don't know if I should as a group. Same with the Teamsters. I'm kind of like,
oh,
automation is coming, you bastards. You
the Teamsters' whole non-Kamala endorsement deal or whatever the fuck. I heard that report and I was like, oh, okay, all right. So today I've turned on the news at 7:30 in the morning and listening to my NPR, and I've looked out the window and the sky is still blue and the Teamsters are still racist fucks.
So
Truck drivers are still racist. Shocking.
Um, but these groups,
Now, in our state, we did it right. Our Teamsters have endorsed Kamala. And yes, that shit right there saved their pensions, and they're like, oh, fuck off, white people.
No, it is. I don't want to ascribe racism to it. I want to ascribe a lot of stupid misinformation, and also in the same way that the restaurant industry takes in a lot of people, and sometimes I'll hear people say shit, and I have to bite my tongue and be like, nope, nope, nope. This is the workplace. This is not the correct forum to correct someone. I feel like like driving a truck does not take a great degree of intellect or education or thought, and as a result, I look at that group and I'm like, y'all have got a lot of cast-offs, and I think there needs to be some acknowledgement in some places in society, and I think we need to start having a conversation about that. About, man, you
Yeah.
your ability to function in wider society is severely limited, isn't it?
Let's talk about the society.
I'll never forget.
Of,
just a slide aside. I'll never forget the one guy who came to me, and he was already on parole, and he said, "So yeah, I'm on parole, and I might have killed a guy," and I'm like, dude, I'm not a bar licensed attorney. I can be called to testify, number one, for you telling me that. Number two, I'm not, even if I was, I wouldn't be your attorney. I could still be called to testify that you just told me that. Number three, if you want the legal advice, which I am not obliged to give you, you need to go turn yourself into the police. And, you look at people like that, you're like, dude, I don't mean to be an asshole about this entire thing, but maybe prison is the best place for you. Like legitimately sitting down with you being like, dude, are you able to not fucking kill someone for 5 fucking seconds because you're already on parole for involuntary manslaughter?
I saw we watched a movie that the person that you're describing there reminds me of a lot of the people in this movie. It's a Netflix film, and it wasn't getting a whole lot of promotion. Oh my god, I'm getting sound. Something's playing at me. Oh my god. I don't want any of this. Why am I being asked for my birthday? I just wanted to look at my Netflix for a second. Jesus Christ, y'all.
Too many tabs open. It
put a video preview up in the back and then threw up this takeover window of shit that I had to vouch for all of a sudden. So
just to clarify for Olivia's statement, they would have to know that he told me first, and I would have to volunteer to the police that he told me.
No, I think it was the might have killed someone part.
Oh, the might. No, so it was he might have hit someone with his car.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Which he did. They survived. It turned out, just to give you like all clear, like skip to the end of the story. The guy survived. He was not killed, but dude still went to prison for hit and run, and he's still there because he was still on fucking parole for involuntary manslaughter. Which, I heard the story. I'm kind of like, yeah. I mean, that was a rough situation. but kind of fair. Yeah, someone died. You didn't actually kill them, which was a key thing for me. But you were
Hitman.
there and not doing something you shouldn't have been doing.
It's Hitman. Hitman is the Netflix movie that's punching way above its weight, way better than you would assume it is. But all the fucking people that he talks to sound like your guy. They're like incriminating the shit out of themselves in conversation.
Oh, that one! I remember that.
It's new.
That was
Have you seen
great.
it?
That was a great movie. That's actually a really good movie. I liked it.
I was surprised, but yeah, the whole thing is like he gets people to admit that they want to hire him as a killer, and then they arrest him. Yeah, October surprise. Wait, what are you hoping is the October surprise?
Wait, hold on.
Oh, right, the Loomer affair.
Oh, that thing.
But I don't think anybody I don't think that's going to do anything new. I think people that already have a distaste for his proclivities, they're already down that road, and the people that don't care are already loyal.
Is Trump putting his mushroom inside the bionic creature that has become? I want to be very clear. Laura Loomer began as kind of like this random, like, kind of hot Nazi blonde, and she literally morphed herself. Because I remember looking at the videos of her getting kicked out of Austria because even the right wing Austrian government was like, nope, nope, nope.
You're kind of a lot. You need to go.
I remember being like, oh, she's kind of goddamn Nazi. Okay, fine. I can't fap to this.
She does resemble an android.
And now, like with the amount of plastic surgery she's done to herself, she's literally like she reminds me of Jigsaw.
Oh my god, you're so right. I was trying to place it. Like, where do I know those cheekbones?
It reminds me of Jigsaw. Man.
Jesus, you're so right. Oh my god, she and Marjorie Taylor Greene deserve each other. Really do.
But I mean, like, she literally morphed herself into Trump's preferred stooping partner.
Oh, weird. I see the younger photos. It's like a different person. Oh my god, here's one where she looks like she's an animatronic.
Right?
Wow.
She used to be kind of like,
this bitch is cray.
Yeah. And then
like, I knew she was cray, but like,
oh no.
Serious cray. Wow. Oh yeah, I let's just, you know what? Let's put her and Green in a box and then shake it around a whole bunch like a couple of cats and just see what the fuck happens. So the other thing on your list of Trump hits was the defections. And I think that one is really interesting to observe. I mean, even George Will wrote a very critical angle on Trump in one of his screeds of fucking
fuck that asshole
garbage. But even asshole. He is like, this is probably not the time to back.
I mean, here's the thing: George Will has never been in favor of Trump, but I still wish nothing but harm upon him. I
mean, of course, you've got the Cheneys, like all of them.
Let joy be absent from your fucking table, you goddamn son of a bitch.
But you've got the Republican mayor of Springfield, Ohio. Obviously, you've got all the Cheneys. You've got George Will. You've got it's just the roster of Republicans that are saying no. You know what? Fuck that guy.
I mean, but here's the thing: it doesn't matter because it's what people are looking for. Like, I think I was talking to someone the other day, and they're like, "Do you think any of this has actually changed anyone's opinion?" I'm like, I don't think it has. And I think this is entirely about voter turnout at this point, about getting people excited to go and vote for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because the problem is that, and Harris admittedly, I will look at Harris and be like, you have been light on fucking policy.
Yeah.
I am more than happy to look at Harris and be like, what? We could have had Elizabeth Warren. Anyway, just a slight aside, we could have had someone with the plan. Back when we chose Biden. Anyway, Harris has been light on policy, and the reason is she's light on policy is because she's like, policy doesn't matter.
Kind of doesn't.
It literally doesn't matter. This is entirely a popularity contest that we're having between two individuals. This is a high school president contest that we're having in real time in the world's most powerful country. That's what we're doing right now. And yes, we should all feel fucking dirty.
And in a lot of it,
we should all, like, the showers, like, water should be scarce for the showers that everyone should have to be taking.
In a lot of it,
to
though,
get clean from this shit.
It's coming down to not only that, but like, who do you trust just to not fuck it up quite as bad, and maybe come out with policies in the laundry later that are the right thing? And I think what we're weighing.
What we're talking about right now is ideas. And on one hand, so the lack of policy makes me feel unclean. But on the other hand,
that's a great summary
ideas.
of it right there, Olivia. I'm going to trust her to know what the ideals should be and put the right people around her, plan and execute. That's absolutely correct. Kind of like I would love to see Tim Walz become the national champion of free lunch for every kid.
Oh, because definitely.
It's kind of one of his bailiwicks, right? Like, I think that'd be really great. Let's close this thing out with the last piece, which is the dark part. You have questioned the wherewithal of Pennsylvania and Georgia to deal with the fuckery. There will be inevitable fuckery. The question is, what is the scale of the fuckery? And are the fuckers fucking the fuckery in our fucking faces carrying arms?
I think in states that are battlegrounds, like, I don't think Pennsylvania is going to be a problem, simply because there's a professionalism. I think there's a professionalism about the PA police department and National Guard and everyone else to do what they need to do. I actually don't think that there'll be a problem in Georgia or any place else. What I'm actually worried about is not the battleground states. I'm worried about where I am.
Tantrums in the homeland of the nutters.
That's what I'm worried about.
That's a reasonable question. Yeah.
I'm worried about where I am and being like the assembly, because like one of the quotes that still sticks with me when they tried to kick out the Tennessee 3 was this leaked audio recording of, "We are trying to do this to save the Republic."
Yeah, right. They truly envision themselves as patriots.
And one of the things that worries me is that these people are going to see the election result and use it at like the election of Lincoln. Mm-hmm. Right? Are they going to try and actually secede? No. But are they going to do something monumental and stupid? Yes. And the way I've played it out in my head is to be like, okay, if I were one of these people, how would I play this out? And the first thing that I would do would be to start rounding up everyone I thought was an illegal immigrant, because that's easy. Like a lot of your population will be okay with that, and even the federal government will start looking around, being like, "Is there anything I can do about?" No, not a lot.
Yeah,
because you're arresting people who are arguably criminals, right? They violated the law. They have crossed the border illegally. Now, there will be a lot of questions about due process. There'll be a lot of questions about that, but those will be hard to process with speed, right?
Yeah.
So the first step would, in my mind, I'm like things that I'm watching and looking for is, we're going to go round up illegal immigrants in the wake of Trump losing the election. We are going to go round up illegal immigrants. Okay, that's step number
And
one.
accuse them of being non-citizens and voting or something.
Something like that. But again, you look at them and be like, it doesn't matter. You won the state.
Right.
The
But they don't care about that. They've
second,
demonstrated that electoral logic makes no clock on their radar at all. Like, oh, well, they just stole the election from Trump. Oh, okay. So there was an intricate plan to make sure that on your state's ballots, Trump lost, but the whole slate of Republicans still won. Oh, yeah, right. We did this whole fake conspiracy of election that was just cheating, just so we could only mess with one.
And again, I'm not as worried about PA. I feel like can handle itself just fine. I feel like Georgia should be able to handle itself fine. North Carolina, I'm a little worried about.
You sure about Georgia, though?
I am, mostly because Kemp hates Trump.
But he's also
Kemp hates Trump.
He's a weak-willed sellout in a lot of ways, though.
But I mean, here's the thing: he may be a weak-willed sellout, but if Trump started pissing in his fucking lawn, he will call out the guard and be like, "Fuck you! I'm still the fucking governor of Georgia. You can go fuck yourself."
You know, I don't know how many National Guard there are in Georgia. I have a feeling that that's one of those things that Google knows. How many National Guard in Georgia? Oh, that's actually a little disappointing.
What?
It's more than 11,000 citizen soldiers. I was hoping for at least 17,000, if you get my drift. Because that would totally be me if I was Kemp. Like, yeah, okay, I got your 17,000 right here, bitch.
I mean, I feel like Kemp would be more than happy to put his dick in Trump's ear just to prove
hopefully,
that he could.
Yeah. Olivia makes a good point about Texas and Florida here, which
Texas and Florida are scary. Again, it's places where Republicans expect to win and likely should win. If there's a sudden switch, well, then we have a problem. But again, it's places where Republicans should win and do win that are concerning to me, because I can definitely see Lee trying to be like, no, like here in my own home state of Tennessee, with Lee trying to say like no, and the wildly MAGA legislature surging forth and deposing him and declaring, oh no, we have to do something. So the first thing that in my mind that we have the warning flag, the big red flag going up is we're going to round up all these illegal immigrants. That's red flag number one.
Mm-hmm.
Red flag number two is while we're out rounding all these people up, we should really talk about these traitors who have subverted our democracy. I'm like, oh, you don't mean actual traitors. You mean people that said no to Trump, and therefore you mean me.
Right.
And a lot of other people like me. You mean a lot of people, especially in urban areas, who have said no. We don't acknowledge because they're going to try and say that the election wasn't legitimate, right? That's going to be their entire tangent, is the election wasn't legitimate. We won't acknowledge it. These people are acknowledging the legitimacy of this election, and therefore they are somehow traitors. In Florida, I don't know if DeSantis has the fucking sack to do.
Yeah, that's true. He really does have a lot of Nancy boy issues when you boil it down.
Abbott does. Abbott will do it in Texas.
Ironically, never mind. I'm going to leave him alone. I've made so many insensitive ableist jokes at the expense of that piece of shit. I really want to. It's right there. It's not hard. It's easy to reach it. It's just too easy to reach
Just
it at this point.
stand up for Trump. You think he'll stand up for Trump?
Yeah, yeah.
Um.
Abbott will take a stand.
Oh. Well. Anyway, especially for a guy who capped insurance payouts after his entire run for governor was funded by his own insurance payout. For an accident, not even someone did something wrong, just act of God. Anyway,
You
no,
do
I
have a
mean
lot of places though where there are pieces of shit in power in positions that can support the stuff, like that fucking sheriff in Ohio.
Yep.
You know,
And
the one that said,
like that
let's get a list of all the Kamala Harris sign addresses." I mean, the leap from that to participating in this rounding up thing that you're talking about is exactly the reason why people
well,
want.
because the thing is, like, legitimately in Tennessee, given the temperature and way things are working, I'm like, we're really close to that, aren't we? We're right on the cusp because you all feel threatened, and you need to find someone to assign that threat to.
Mhm.
You need to pick out some people who you're like, oh nope, that's the person who is threatening me. And that's one of my main concerns. I don't think we're going to end up with a split decision in the House. I don't think we're going to go that far because again, the main thing is some people have talked about, oh, what if we end up in this situation? I don't think Pennsylvania is weak enough
Oh, with the House
to choosing the
having to
president.
choose, yeah, that would be bedlam.
Because
That's
that would
how
be
shit pops
really
off.
that would be really bad. Which is Republicans are angling right now for that. They were
Oh yeah.
angling for some sort of disputed election that has to be determined by the House.
Mhm.
And for those who aren't familiar with how
Kind of
this
their only
works,
hope, really, in a lot of ways.
yeah, for those who aren't familiar with how this works, so what happens if the Electoral College cannot reach a majority opinion on the election? In other words, if no one hits 270, then the House sits and every state gets one vote, which would guarantee a Republican win. Right?
Right.
Even
That's something
if
that's not
let's
changing.
say even if their state voted for Harris, but they have a majority Republican delegation, then that majority Republican delegation is very likely to vote for Trump, which is one of the things that they're kind of angling for at this point. They're hoping that they can disrupt the election hard enough. That isn't my big fear. My big fear is that Republican states are going to go nuts because what has a potential to happen, I don't think Harris has the political capital at the end of this to maybe really tamp down on some of this, but I think that a lot of Republican states are going to treat this like the election of Lincoln.
Mhm.
That a second black person has been elected president, and that is going to send them absolutely off the wall.
Mhm.
Because it's
And
really a
one that
signal.
slept her way to the top, and one that doesn't actually know anything.
Oh
And
God, have you seen the Dean Withers videos?
mm-mm.
Oh, so I highly recommend you watch the Dean Withers videos. They're kind of interesting. So one has Charlie Kirk debating 20, I would argue, not so great debate like leftist debaters, and the other
Mhm.
has so the Harris campaign was given the option to send someone to debate for this thing, and the Harris campaign said, we ain't touching this." So they had to find someone to do this, and they found this college age kid who's apparently a professional debater for leftist causes, and they put him in a room with 20 Republicans, and it was amazing to watch him dismantle them
Oh, Jesus. You got to send me a link. And furthermore, you have to put that link in the comments for this broadcast so other people can enjoy that as well.
I will do that right now. But the Dean Withers like whole system is a really interesting insight into voters on both sides who may not be as well informed.
Yeah.
But it is a really great insight into I felt like into the mind of the Republican voter.
Well, normally about this time, we put a scroll at the bottom of the screen that asks people to share this with their friends and feel free to like or subscribe so they know when we do videos. I want to depart this topic and the show with a completely different, much more appropriate crawl. I want to make sure that when we are taking stock of the places where the authorities might cooperate and try to rise up, that we know where they live. So I'll close the show with Sheriff Bruce Zucchini Polini, whatever the fuck his stupid ass name is.
Yeah.
His home address is 10440 Scotts Corners Road, Diamond, Ohio 44412. Since he thinks it's great to collect the addresses of Kamala Harris supporters for his future needs, we'll just make sure that everybody gets every chance they can to know exactly where he and his wife Amanda is his wife's name, live, and just in case the illegals need a place to go. Anyway, we appreciate you joining us either live or on the replay. It's been a fun time, this alternate night, the Thursday night show. David,
we might be moving to this for a little bit.
Maybe, who knows? We'll see. We'll definitely be doing, I think the next thing on our agenda is probably Oktoberfest. So we'll try to do an Oktoberfest show.
We will definitely we won't be talking to you the night of election, mostly because both of us will be on the fucking floor, unable to speak or function, because that's the only way to deal with that level of stress.
Right.
But the day after, we are more than happy to grab the hair of the dog with all of you.
It's 100% possible that randomly on our Facebook page, you'll see us cut in with a very sloppy mobile-generated live video, and screaming at the top of our lungs, hooting and hollering about something crazy like Texas coming out. But anyway,
if Texas comes out, I swear to God, I will strip naked and I will video my fat ass running naked all the way down my street, screaming "Eureka!" I will do it. You all heard me say it right here online. I will strip naked. And run down my street screaming "Eureka!"
Only if your mother holds the phone to do the coverage and turns the phone to herself, looking at me on the other end of the live stream, and goes like she said on January 6th when she answered the door when I came over to your house, looked at me and goes, "Lucas, what the fuck is going on?" Oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming. Now it's time. We bid you a good night.
Good night.
God.
Good evening. And
already that drunk. Good luck.
Good luck. Oh Jesus, it's bad. It's bad. I'm sorry. I still have the image of me running naked down the street. I'm trying to how do I justify this?
With a flesh-colored
Also, then you brought my mom into this, and now it just got really fucking awkward and kind of fucking weird. I don't know how I felt about it.
That's your mental image problem, sir.
I know, well, because you just suggested that my mom should film me naked running down the street. That really, fucking
somebody's got to do it,
dude.
Ask your Trumpy neighbors. All right, we'll see you on the other side, everybody.